When when it's time to begin, it's on the Rewind Around with John Pollock and Wai Ting. The A-Team that makes sense of these things we see in the ring every week on TV. It's Rewind Around for Monday night. Download it Tuesday morning from the Post Wrestling site. It's Rewind Around for Monday night on USA Now on the John and Wai Take the Mic.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a special Tuesday edition of Rewind Raw. I am John Pollock, and I'm hoping that I am going to be joined by the repaired vocal cords of Wai Ting, who is joining us. Wai Ting, what percentage have you rebounded from after we heard you got your way through Saturday's Wrestle Dream pay-per-view? Are you at full strength today?
You tell me, John.
You're not so much. You were kind of Bob Orton Jr. on Saturday night, and now you sound like I don't know who's a great orator. Bruce, you've moved up to Bruce.
Bruce Hart, yeah. No, I feel good. Like I've actually kind of felt pretty fine, throughout the course of the last few days. But my voice was really bad, so apologies everybody. I also wanted to be honest. Like it was also Canadian Thanksgiving. Didn't exactly feel like staying up and watching Raw.
Talking to me, yeah,
or talking to you either. So thank you for accommodating, John. And here we are on a Tuesday at noon, live, talking about last night's Raw.
Yeah, actually, Monday night I watched Only Murders in the Building, so I was actually going to go through season 4, where we are up to now.
Oh, okay. Feel free.
Yeah. You want to talk about the Westies or no? Okay.
I watched Pop Star Cat's Eye. Are you familiar with that?
The stuff you watch, I don't even need to know the description of this, but indulge briefly.
I mean, it's a show on Netflix. It's called Pop Star Academy Cat's Eye, and it's the making of a K-pop group.
Okay.
But in America.
So
that's pretty novel. I mean, I we're kind of joking, but it's amazing how much similarity I find between this show, where like they're essentially like manufacturing a pop group, and they're like holding auditions around the world, and they're looking for like qualities that are like strikingly similar to like I think what professional wrestling, I guess I don't know, scouts might be looking for. Like we're talking, some sort of ability to perform the technical aspect of either singing or dancing, which in I guess our line of work would be more similar to like in-ring work and promo skills. But then they're looking for like these X factors, like charisma and things like that. So I mean, it was my wife's choice to watch it, but I'm gaining a lot just from maybe the wrestling similarities.
Okay, well, you recommend then?
I do recommend, yeah.
First season came out back in August. So how deep are you into this? This is an 8-episode. They dumped the whole season at once here on people. I mean, could the public handle 8 episodes at once?
I think that's what Netflix does. So yeah, I think I'm on episode 4. So
okay, well, keep us posted on that. I saw The Apprentice over the weekend, the new Donald Trump movie.
Oh, how was that?
I really liked it a lot. It bombed at the box office, but I thought Jeremy Strong is fantastic in it. I think the only thing that will, I felt like this was an Academy Award-winning performance from Jeremy Strong as Roy Cohn. He was excellent. Sebastian Stan was not a bad Donald Trump. He's not doing like your comedic kind of just parody of Donald Trump, because I don't think that would play well for a feature-length movie. But this is more so Donald Trump throughout the 70s and his rise in the real estate world and sort of the facade that he cultivated for himself, and kind of learning at the feet of Roy Cohn, who they have their own sort of breakup of their relationship later in Roy Cohn's life, which if you've ever studied or watched about Roy Cohn, I mean, quite a dark figure in U.S. Political history.
Well, why do you think it bombed?
I don't know what the answer would be. I mean, they got a lot of attention because there was the attempt that no distributor was going to pick this thing up. Like it might not have even been released. And that's usually always a positive for these films. I don't know if it was the case. Like, they don't go into any of his political career. I don't know if that's a turn on or a turn off to people. But it was, I guess it was not the most mass marketed film either. Yeah, but it did not do well at the box office.
But you recommend it?
I enjoyed it. It was it's not a feel good movie to say the least. But I think Jeremy Strong is fantastic in it, and I thought Sebastian Stan played Donald Trump pretty well. I wasn't as sold on him playing Donald Trump, but he, Bucky pulled off Donald Trump fairly well.
Right. All right. Thank you.
Okay. All right. We're on a time crunch today, so we are going to go right into news. We got a filing this morning from Janel Grant's team in the Superior Court in the Judicial District of Stamford. And what they are trying to do is to oppose Dr. Carlon Colker and the Peak Wellness Clinic's motion to dismiss the bill of discovery that Grant's team has sought out over the past couple of months, where Grant's team is continually trying to get the complete electronic medical records for Janel Grant from her time seeing and being treated by Dr. Colker from November 2019 until April of 2022, which she states was at the urging of Vince McMahon. Grant had filed for a bill of discovery, and it is being done for the purposes of investigating potential claims of civil conspiracy, aiding and abetting, fraud, assault, battery, RICO conspiracy, and or breach of fiduciary duty against Dr. Colker and the Peak Wellness Clinic. They state they have received some incomplete and inaccurate paper records, but thus far they have not received the complete electronic medical records, and there is a listing of all that they are seeking, including the medical records and metadata, Dr. Colker and Peak Wellness's record-keeping and billing procedures, the records related to Ms. Grant, Colker and Peak Wellness's payment arrangements with Vince McMahon and or WWE, the prescribed treatments that Grant was given, as well as the substance, which, I mean, just on the surface, I would say even in the limited records they have received, it would blow my mind that your records are provided in some, kind of piecemeal way, and they're still asking what the exact medication was that she was placed upon. Like, that would be, to me, like the bare minimum is that you at least know what you were given. And they are indicating they are still trying to find out not just the substance of it, but what the purpose of it was. Also looking for any communications between Dr. Colker and McMahon related to Ms. Grant, and Dr. Colker's involvement in recommending Ms. Grant's attorney for negotiation of the purported non-disclosure agreement. So, I mean, in essence, they are just trying to shoot down Colker and Peak Wellness's ability to dismiss this bill of discovery and are pushing forward for the electronic medical records. The stay on the civil case lasts until December the 11th, and Ann Callis and Kendra Barkoff-Lamy and as well as another legal representative, they were on a call this morning with a few members of the media and kind of just reiterated this. They are not suing Dr. Colker or Peak Wellness, but it's this bill of discovery that they are pushing forth. And I mean, if for anyone that has ever followed RICO cases, those are scary letters when you're talking about RICO and the potential of it that tends to get people's attention, because you are talking about significant charges at that point when you're talking about RICO conspiracy.
Right. Yeah. I don't really have a whole lot to add as about maybe the some of these aspects of like what they're alleging. I will say though, this PR firm that the Callis team have, or the Grant team have hired, I think is already like showing the effects. Like we're talking about these stories, I think a lot more depth, and we're maybe getting a lot more information, spokespeople attached to these stories, at least on the Grant side, than I think we would have otherwise typically. So I personally feel like they understand the power of keeping these stories in the public, and how just having some of that public pressure through headlines like this and conversations like this is leverage for them in some form. So that's maybe what I take away from it.
I think that's an aspect to it, is that it's not just making these filings, but it's also publicizing these facts, attaching this with a press conference afterwards, even as like this was like 10, 12 minutes this morning, this entire press conference, but it further engages media to focus on these stories and to get them out. And you can certainly see that change since this new firm, SKDK, has been brought on, and adding that aspect to things and getting this information out in a wider spread way as well. So that is the latest on that case. Over to New Japan, there were a bunch of things coming out of Monday's King of Pro Wrestling show. at the top of the news ledger was Zack Sabre Jr. winning the IWGP Championship from Tetsuya Naito, as well as the announcement of Hiroshi Tanahashi's pending retirement, where he has stated his final match will occur on January 4th, 2026. So we are going to have year-long farewells to John Cena and Hiroshi Tanahashi.
Yes, we are. Yeah, it's going to be a very bittersweet 2025, and I think a very tearful end of 2025 / beginning of 2026 in both sides of the ocean. Yeah, significant news, but I'm also kind of glad that we get a full year to be able to digest it and to be able to tell at least one or maybe several last great stories attached to both men's careers.
Does Tanahashi do the G1 next summer?
No, I don't want to see it.
I think he's going to. I think he's going to be the story of the G1 next year.
Okay, so he did say here that he wanted to. So in the event that he wins the championship, he will continue his career, right, until he drops the title.
Was that said at the press conference? I'd not heard that.
I believe he say that at as part of the speech or something. Maybe I've only heard that from others reporting it, but. Okay, so that would maybe lead you to think that he might win. He might enter the G1 in order to win the G1 so that he could headline and get a title match at the Tokyo Dome. It's very possible.
I mean, you could argue from the biggest hook you can make for that Tokyo Dome show. It is Tanahashi going for Tanahashi going for one last title is a layup, just like John Cena going for one last title is a layup. I think that both stories should be told in the respective promotions. And as much as I fear Tanahashi holding up for a G1, if you're telling me what's the most engaging story, Tanahashi entering what will definitely be his last G1 and going for that championship, that's the type of thing that will, I think, invigorate a lot of people to seek out the G1 next year and hopefully have several big Tanahashi matches spread out throughout the year.
I think it's great in theory.
In execution, definitely.
Can his knees last the G1?
Like, it was so telling that where New Japan was this past summer and Tanahashi foregoing the G1. I mean, that tells you everything you need to know. But next year, that's, I think, going to be the big story next year. Did you get to see the Zack Sabre Jr. Tetsuya Naito match? They went almost 25 minutes. Zack Sabre Jr. winning with 3 Zack drivers, including a cross-legged version at the end. And I really like this after it's explained. Like, he doesn't like to rely on high-impact maneuvers, but that was what was required to pull this off. And then we had the post-match where we had Sonata come out to set up the Crystal Palace match this Sunday. Then we had Shota Umino and Shingo Takagi show up, who were both individuals that beat Zack in the G1. Makes sense. So afterward, we have Sonata and Zack draw names from a hat where if Zack wins on Sunday, he'll defend the title at Power Struggle against Takagi. And if Sonata wins the title on Sunday, he will defend the title against Umino at Power Struggle. Leave it to New Japan to just make you the most confusing set of match setups. But anyway, that's a long-winded preamble to let's go back to just your thoughts on the match itself with Naito and Zack.
I really enjoyed the match. I was particularly impressed at Tetsuya Naito's performance. Last we've seen of him, and hasn't really been all that great, but clearly he was resting up and giving full effort to make sure that his passing on of this championship was going to be in a pretty good match, and I thought this was actually a really excellent match. So very impressed with Naito here, and
Naito was awesome in this match. I mean, for all you want to say about his disappointing G1, like, he went all out in this match. I thought it had that big match feel at the beginning, and I just thought both. It was an excellent match, and I really enjoyed this, and I love that Shingo Takagi Ryohei Oiwa match on the undercard as well for the Never Openweight Championship. It was a very good show overall, but I'd certainly recommend the title match, the Takagi match, and the Junior Heavyweight Tag Title match where the intergalactic jet setters of Kushida and Kevin Knight won the Junior Heavyweight Tag Titles as well. But I did a full review up on the Post Wrestling Cafe if you want to go listen to me talk to myself for 38 minutes about King of Pro Wrestling and the booking coming out of that show.
Not many people can do that, and you happen to be very compelling.
Some would argue I can't do it either, but there you have it.
I wouldn't.
So we had a million announcements after this show. So the full card for Royal Quest 4, which is this Sunday, Zack Sabre Jr. and Sonata for the IWGP title in the main event. Shane Haste and Mikey Nichols defend the strong openweight tag titles against Hiroshi Tanahashi and Tomohiro Ishii. Naito will team with Hiromu and Titan against Ryohei Oiwa, Robbie Eagles, and Mascara Dorada. David Finlay takes on Taka Michinoku. Okay. Shota Umino event against Callum Newman, Yota Tsuji versus Drilla Maloney, Michael Oku against Kosei Fujita, Mina Shirakawa teams with Kenji against Danny Luna and Azumi. Taiji Ishimori will team with Mystery Man X, who will also be his partner in the Super Junior Tag League against Joe Lando and Danny Black, and then a kickoff match with Brendan White and Danny Jones against Young Lions on Excursion, Oscar Loibe, and Yuto Nakashima. So that's going down Sunday late afternoon, and Karen Peterson, Bruce Lord will be back in the co-host seats for a review on the Post Wrestling Cafe this coming Sunday. And then Power Struggle, which is a month from now on a couple of weeks from now, November the 4th, we will get either Zack or Sonata defending the IWGP title. So likely getting Zack and Takagi for that one. David Finlay and Taichi for the global heavyweight title. Doki against the returning Master Wato for the IWGP junior heavyweight title. Showed up in a suit, making his return after he's been out most of the year. And we will see. It looks like he's going to keep the name, but maybe ditch the awful gear. So
I would
halfway
hope
there.
so. Yeah.
TMDK against Hanare and Okan for the IWGP tag titles. Tanahashi and El Phantasmo against Evil and Ren Narita, as well as the finals of the Super Junior Tag League, which they announced all of the teams for the tag league, which starts on October 24th. And it includes the Velocities, who are going to be part of it. Big break for Paris De Silva and Jude London, who are going to be in the B block alongside Ishimori and his Mystery Man, DKC and Ninja Mac, Francesco Akira and TJP, Yo and Rocky Romero, and your champions Kushida and Kevin Knight. The A block has former champs Clark Connors and Drilla Maloney, Hiromu and Bushi, Robbie Eagles and Kosei Fujita, Taguchi and Dragon Daya from Dragon Gate, Sho and Yoshinobu Kanemaru, and Tiger Mask with Capitan Suicida on the respective blocks. So another tournament kicking off in just a couple of weeks as well. So a lot that New Japan had to throw out there. And maybe even lost in all of the news announcements was on Monday show, the Young Bucks will be part of the second night at the Tokyo Dome, January the 5th. And a lot of people suspecting that after New Japan dropped this sit-down meeting between Hiroshi Tanahashi and Kenny Omega, that is certainly Tokyo Dome worthy match for the Young Bucks to come back for January 5th. So that's an interesting card because AEW's got World's End the week prior, and then you've got this card to promote as well.
Yeah, the Omega Tanahashi promotion, I suppose you can call it, is an interesting one because I don't think we've had any sort of real significant update on the health status of Kenny Omega other than now we know that he's training with Kota Ibushi. Can he be ready in time for January the 5th or the 4th?
And would he make his return in a New Japan ring versus the week prior for AEW? Because typical of these returns is that AEW gets the first match when their guys are healthy.
Yes. So hopefully this is all a good sign that Kenny's ready to come back.
How do you feel as we're getting closer to the two-night Tokyo Dome experiment for New Japan? Because this is a unique year where you don't have the challenger set up. Umino and Takagi feel like they are... I mean, you could have something come out of that leads to January 4th, but man, Zack against... there's not that obvious challenger unless you're pulling from... a dream match scenario for a Zack, which a Danielson would have been great, but that's not happening.
Yeah. I have no idea who it's going to be. I don't think I would be against the dream match scenario, putting Zack up against, I don't know, like somebody from like a Will Ospreay, for instance. You know, I think like that would be interesting, at least as like sort of a marketing gimmick to cater to maybe more of a global audience. But yeah, like if it's going to be somebody like, I don't know, Yota Tsuji, I think it's great for the future. It's great for investment, but it's not necessarily going to be a big enough hook for at least, you know, an international audience. Like
a Zack Okada is like, those are the kinds of matches that they're great for the night and you are trying to sell tickets. Long term, to me, it's getting one of those like next ones up and running to be in that position, but you could argue like no one is in that position yet to be able to carry a Tokyo Dome main event. Like it's a big risk putting Zack in this position. Phenomenal wrestler, but this is new territory for him, being that top guy for the company. Ratings from Friday, SmackDown was number 1 on cable with 1,652,000 viewers and a .49 in the demo. Their highest number since the season premiere on USA last month, and they were basically number 2 on television behind the Major League Baseball playoff game on Fox. So Fox continuing their dominance of Friday nights. That Padres Dodgers game did over 7.3 million viewers and a 1.77 in the demo, but SmackDown was up 9% in viewership, 3% in the demo from the week prior. This did feature Roman Reigns, and if anyone was just tuning in at 8 o'clock to sample, you come for Roman Reigns, and suddenly after segment 1, we're getting brother versus brother later in the show. I mean, what a way to hook people for 2 hours.
One of many brothers versus brothers matches I'm sure we'll get in the weeks to come.
And then Rampage, after last week's horrendous number, they were at least up this week, not through the roof, but 253,000 viewers and a .09, up 17 and 22% respectively, 8th in prime time on cable, and their largest 18 to 49 number since September the 20th. So that was your go-home episode before Wrestle Dream. And finally, announcements for tonight. NXT will feature the number 1 contenders match, Ethan Page, Javon Evans, and Wes Lee, to determine who challenges Trick Williams at Halloween Havoc. Stephanie Vacour's first NXT TV match against Ren Sinclair. Lola Vice against the returning Nikita Lyons. Riley Osborne takes on Ridge Holland. A gentleman's duel between Oro Mensah and Lexis King. Haven't seen a great gentleman's duel in some time. And Tony D'Angelo will celebrate his North American Championship victory from last week over Obafemi. And then Dynamite Wednesday night, coming out of the pay-per-view, they've announced appearances by Jon Moxley and Adam Cole. We will see if the duffel bag appears as well for Moxley. Christian Cage taking on Jay White. Mercedes Moné against Queen Aminata. And the in-ring debut of Shelton Benjamin in AEW against Lio Rush. And this is their debut in San Jose. They're running the SAP Center, which, again, another gigantic arena, and they will not have a gigantic audience for, but that is almost par for the course for a lot of these TVs.
Do you think it's a card? I saw a lot of people complaining that we don't have a card for this Dynamite. Is this enough of an announcement, or do you think they need to announce something with the bigger names?
There's nothing on this that strikes me as like, if you were in the San Jose marketway and you hadn't bought tickets yet, are you changing your mind based off these announcements?
I think I would at least have an assumption that I would see some of the top guys there, but maybe they need to confirm it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it'll be a fine show. To me, this more so important is the television number they do, and to me that is all based off the fallout of the Danielson angle and follow up to that. Like, that is the interest in Wednesday show beyond any of these announcements. Like, it's the Moxley direction that they're going. To me, that is the key. Like, did that angle sufficiently draw people? Like, people had all these reactions to like the heat generated, and there was a ton of it, but now you have to follow up on it. And if it doesn't lead to anything, like, it's great that you do a well executed angle, but it's hopefully captivating people to tune in to see what the next chapter is. All right, all your news can be found postwrestling.com and postwrestlingcafe.com. This coming week, we will have Pollock and Thurston dropping on Wednesday. Wai and I are back Wednesday night for Dynamite, and then Thursday. We are going back to October of 1987 on NBC. Saturday Night Live has the week off, and in its place is Sika eating chickens on network television, when you could get away with such a thing in 1987, as he will challenge Hulk Hogan for the WWF Championship. The Mega Powers forming in one of the most comical segments of the decade, and Randy Savage challenging Honky Tonk Man, the Young Stallions against the Hart Foundation, and King Kong Bundy versus Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff. And lost in this way, the world premiere of the Pile Driver music video, which the WWE Network, for all the rights that they have lost over the years, you make your own music, you get it in perpetuity, and we get the Pile Driver music video and the dulcet tones of one Coco Beware.
This is a choice that could only come from Hansi, who actually takes the role of Sean Levine, who graciously gave it up to Hanzi. So he'll be joining us to talk about why he chose this particular show.
Yes, Sean Levine was our Darby Allin that stepped aside and lost his pick, and Hanzi is the John Moxley here capitalizing. So that's coming up on Thursday. A lot of great stuff coming up all week long. The NWA podcast coming your way, and there's just a sample of what's going to be on the cafe this coming month. We've got another Rewind Away covering Money in the Bank 2011. John Cena and I will be doing a Bound for Glory review later on this month as well. And Agatha All Along continues. We're up to episode 6 this week. When does that series wind down? Do you have any idea?
I believe it's 10, but I believe the last 2 episodes air on the same week. I'm pretty sure. Don't quote me on that, but a big reveal this week, so I won't spoil it for you. But 9 episodes. 8 and 9 are on the same week, though, so we only have, I think, 3 weeks left.
Okay, well, there you have it. PostWrestlingCafe.com, $6 gets you in the door, 30 days of access to all of our extra shows we put out, and you can dive through the archive and go through all of our Rewind Aways, hell, you can listen to every Collision course from episode 1 onward. Just binge it.
Sure, you can. Yeah, you get these shows ad-free as well, so you don't have to listen to this.
Monday Night Raw from last week. Man, Wai, could you have told this was a taped show if you did not have that knowledge going in?
I think you could, yeah.
This was a double taping last week at the Enterprise Center in St. Louis. And starting things off, it's Rhea Ripley coming out, and they included highlights of her appearance at SmackDown. And this was really interesting, the way they wove in Nia Jax to essentially come for revenge from Friday's attack, but taped ahead of time. So the wonders of booking in advance so you know where you're going and being able... Because it really didn't make a whole lot of sense for Nia Jax to have any issue with Rhea Ripley when people were watching this in the arena last Monday, but it made total sense coming off of SmackDown.
Absolutely. I didn't even consider maybe all the puzzle pieces that they had to kind of fit, out of order in order to have this work, but it worked.
Rhea says that this will not end until she gets her women's title back, wants Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez out right now. And instead, Tiffany Stratton comes out, and Stratton has a message on behalf of Nia Jax to stay out of her business, or else we will have a big problem. And Rhea threatens Stratton when Liv and Raquel jump both of them, and Liv attacks Stratton with her own briefcase. And this would be our setup for later in the next segment when Rhea is telling Pierce she wants Liv and Raquel, but Pierce states she must have a partner. And then Tiffany Stratton walks in, and that is how we get the setup for tonight's main event.
I find it really interesting how they were on this show teasing Rhea versus Nia Jax pretty hard. And obviously the match is at this point Liv versus Nia Jax, but it's one that I think we've all wondered, how they're going to necessarily pull off on the evening up because you're getting double heels. I wonder if this tease of Rhea versus Nia is, for something further down the line, or if it possibly could be a sign that they might be considering Rhea versus Nia for Crown Jewel.
Yeah, I mean, you're running out of Raws to do this on, although you could do it. Yeah, you have 2 more weeks. You could always do something like that. My sense is they're just going to go ahead with this Liv Morgan and Nia Jax match, but it seems that Rhea will be set up for Liv coming out of that, and maybe that's your Survivor Series blow-off or a TV one. You could do the big blow-off on TV as well.
Right.
Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill defending the women's tag titles against Io Sky and Kairi Sane, and we have Lash Legend and Jakara Jackson in the crowd. So again, we are playing off of their loss to Cargill and Belair, which happened on SmackDown, and they were seated here days earlier. So we have double-seated drop kicks
kind of worked both ways. It worked as a preview of Friday, and it also worked as a rematch tease.
Yeah, and coming out of it, their focus is more on Damage Control than it is Cargill and Belair. But we will get to their involvement here. So they're beating on Belair for quite some time. Then Belair manages a spear to Sky. Both are down and tag in their respective partners. Cargill tries to drop Belair on top of Sane with a Dominator, but Sane gets out of the way, so Belair crashes into the mat, and then Sky presses Sane into the air, and she comes down with an elbow drop onto Belair in the center. Over the moonsault misses as Jade pulls Belair out of the way, and they swing Sky into the barricade, leading to Sky getting into it with Jackson and Legend at ringside. And this allows Sky to then hit the Asai moonsault. Sky starts arguing, and Jackson grabs her. So Lash strikes Sky with a forearm. Belair does not see this and just lifts her up for a vertical, but turns it into the KOD, pinning Io Sky, and the champions retain.
I thought it was a pretty awesome match, which for these tag titles, I don't feel like I could say that so much about many of these title defenses, but I thought this was a match that extended the great chemistry that you saw between Bianca and Io. The pace for it was kept very busy, very exciting, just like the Bianca and Io matches. Jade's progression is always a point of interest for me when I'm watching and reviewing these matches. I thought she looked really good here, playing the powerhouse role. She knows her role well now, and she seems pretty comfortable playing it. She looked impressively powerful, looked confident. I really love the double team moves from both teams, in particular that great pop-up insane elbow from Damage CTRL. And I also thought they did a great job of weaving Jackson and Legend into all of this. And I didn't even consider the whole, taping out a sequence aspect of it, which makes this even that much more impressive. So it looks like we're at least, we can either pivot to a rematch with Jackson and Legend with Bella and Jade, or we could pivot to a Damage CTRL match. And at this point, I have to say, I think Jackson and Legend in these two appearances on a main roster programs, they look to have big enough personalities that they feel like natural integrations into this sort of main roster environment. I can definitely see them getting the call up sooner than later, provided they can continue to look decent in ring.
And that would mean that the women's tag division grows by a third.
Put the belts on them.
Yeah. Balor and JD walk up to Adam Pearce, and Balor wants a rematch with Damian Priest, but Pearce is more concerned with them defending the tag titles, and they explain, we just defended them last month. So Pearce says, you know what, tournament time. He's going to start a tournament to find new challengers. The rest of Judgment Day walk in asking when Balor's getting his rematch with Priest, and he just storms off, and Liv introduces the gang to Raquel Rodriguez, and Carlito appears to be awestruck by Raquel.
I hope this is the direction for Carlito and Raquel. I do think Judgment Day is at its best when it can balance their sort of like serious gothy heel whatever they are with like the silliness of like an R-Truth or like a Dominic Mysterio, and now giving something for Carlito potentially to do with Raquel. And Carlito has definitely found a quiet role for himself as like the comic relief lackey for the team, and this is, I think, a great way to maybe showcase him at a different level. It's also a great way for Raquel to maybe give us some identifiable sort of personality showcase as well.
Man, between JD and Carlito and R-Truth, like the hoops that all of these people had to go through for weeks and weeks on end to finally be accepted by the Judgment Day, these guys were pretty chill about Raquel just kind of being introduced right away. It's like, cool.
Right.
Yeah,
is she officially a member, or is she just like, hey,
I mean, she got to be in a segment with them, so I think that's our confirmation.
Right. Well, I'm sure Carlito's voting for her to be an official member.
And then what is quickly becoming my favorite
these are great
guilty pleasures of the week, American Made. I mean, this is the closest we can just get to like MAGA on WWE programming. Like that is what we are doing here with these four. American Made pop up in their Hummer and define what greatness is, and that the definition should be changed to American Made. And in the say the quiet part out loud, Julia says, we're sick and tired of degenerates that are looking for handouts.
Yeah. Like you said, John, about as close as you can get without saying.
Damn socialists. Yeah. And that was that. It was like, I think it's like, how can we just like skirt the line of political discourse with complete like deniability that this is at all a like political group, but just leaning on that for heel motivations. And I think it's great for this group.
It's fantastic. Yeah. And it's not like it's
not overt. It's not overt, and it's not going to, risk, I think, any like,
You've had characters of this nature in the past, like I mean, Kurt Angle maybe being the most obvious example of somebody who's maybe overly obnoxiously American, but it certainly takes on a different context in modern times, and I certainly think that they have a lot more heel sort of elements that they can draw from society in order to make this feel like it's a great heel group. And I think it's a wonderful playground, especially for the Creeds and Ivy Nile to play within, because they're still really like learning and practicing at being bigger personalities, but now having this sort of the confines of this direction is an excellent place for them to continue to grow.
I think next week their follow-up needs to be Shane Helms is backstage, and they accuse Shane Helms of being created by the left.
Why?
Because of their ability to create and destroy
control the
hurricanes. Yeah.
Goodness.
Braun Breaker video. A lot of video packages on this show to pad out the program. He responds to his attack on Jey Uso last week. Basically, why did we do a total 180 with this character last week after we had moved on? Well, he now believes Jey lucked his way into winning the title, and I was respectful. I shook your hand, but never once did you say that you respected me. You threw it back in my face. We are not the same because I'm doing this on my own, and I'm not using the Steiner name. I'm going to surpass Rick and Scott and earn their respect. Jey has been sucking off his family's name for years, and I'm coming back for my title, and Jey's family cannot save him.
Mm-hmm.
This felt very clear to me that this was a rapid shift in direction. This did not feel like this was. It just felt like, well, we're changing course here with Bron. There is no reference to the Gunther interaction, and it just kind of feels like we had moved on, and now we're taking a step back. And like you were teasing Bron kind of graduating out of this program to something bigger, and now he's going back.
We could still get that. This could just be maybe a 1 week delay so that we could do the Jey versus Braun rematch, and then we might just continue with whatever direction that they had already for Braun. But yeah, it does maybe call to attention maybe some sort of reversion.
Pierce has a sit-down meeting with Bronson Reed at an undisclosed location, and he explains how he gives his roster a lot of leeway to handle their business. But the match with Strowman went too far. It put people at risk, and it tore a man's groin. Reed blames Rollins. He says he wants a match with him. Reed explains that the tsunamis were just to get to the top, and you should appreciate my ambition to prove I'm a top guy, and promises no trouble if he is granted this match with Seth Rollins. Pierce is going to go talk to Seth, but he appreciates if they are on the same page.
Mm-hmm. There's a bit of a weird setting for this type of conversation. Like, why a sit-down interview? You know,
this felt like an abandoned nightclub.
Yeah,
where it's like everyone's inside.
I mean, it probably was just one of those things where they couldn't have fit into their actual taping, so they had to go to their hotel and maybe shoot this afterwards. Who knows? Yeah. But I thought like in terms of content, like this turned out pretty well. Reed's motivation is logical. I could buy it in his promos. Why did he do all that to get Pierce's attention? And I think Pierce continues to be really great in this sort of understated role of like being an authority figure who says what he has to say, I guess, with enough charisma, but without maybe being so charismatic that it takes your attention away from the talent that's being featured. So I think he's great.
Otis and Akira Tozawa are out with Maxine to take on the returning War Raiders, who have not teamed up together since September of last year. And showcase match for the War Raiders, and especially an opponent in Tozawa that they could just throw around. Otis comes in, the Caterpillar is stopped with a spin kick, and then there's a pop-up into a slam by the War Raiders. Eric launches him up in the air as Ivar comes off the top with a splash, which is, they're still going with the name The Fallout, but this is a variation on the move with the throw and the splash, and they destroyed Otis and Tozawa.
What was the Fallout before?
The Fallout was he would hold him in place, and now he's like just throwing him into midair, which is probably not a move you can do on too many people. Like Otis wasn't taking this one.
So this is the rebranding of the Viking Raiders from Vikings to now, like they're looking more like, I don't know, I would just say like bikers, wouldn't you say, John? Like,
yeah, they ride bikes instead of like horses now.
Yeah, they're just like dudes in vests who have an interest in Viking history. They're not LARPers anymore, which is, I think, like a really good, at least attempt, at trying to rebrand them. They're giving us back the sort of what at once was a taboo name in War Raiders as opposed to the Viking Raiders. I think overall, like, it's good. It helps them feel less cartoonish, which has always been the struggle with this team. It's clear to me that this crowd this evening didn't necessarily think like the return to the name War Raiders was anything that significant. Like I think by the teases and also by maybe the reaction that they might have been expecting with the big graphic, either they were expecting people to remember the War Raiders from NXT, or just like the idea that, hey, like they're not allowed to be called that name. Now they're allowed to be called that name. Isn't that controversial? Isn't that crazy?
Oh, so controversial.
Yeah. Like didn't get that sort of reaction. But let's also remember this was like the third hour of a pretty long taping. The third hour actually is, now it feels like it's forever.
In 1 week, we're going to get a war, machine guns.
Yes, I know.
Blood last week. I mean, it's a new world way.
Different era, yeah. Not that much reaction, I would say, for all of this, but they did get a great reaction for that finish. I wouldn't say it was a home run debut, but like, I don't know, like what, a solid single, would you say?
Sure, yeah. Single down the middle.
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
I also hope it like changes some direction for Otis and Tozawa, because like they are completely lost right now, you know?
Did you catch... I don't think they've done this for their entrance before. They come out now and they kiss Maxine on the cheek together.
I did notice that, yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's kind of odd.
Well, it's what they chose to do.
Okay. Seth Rollins meets with Adam Pearce. He's apprehensive about making this match with Rollins and Reed because Rollins has only had 6 matches this year, and you've been hurt for all of them. He'd be like, that's on you. You've cleared me. Rollins explains you fight through injuries, and then the young people try to knock you off. And there's a reason I run this place. I need to fight people like Bronson Reed to bring out the best in me, and says he tried to ruin my life. And Pierce needs to make this match if you want the best version of me. And also makes note of, in the past, he has slayed beasts, which was our first of 2 Brock Lesnar subtle references on this show, which I don't think went unnoticed.
Yeah, but I certainly noticed it. Yeah, I don't think they, do anything that's just coincidental these days. So I would definitely take it to mean that they might be again testing the waters by referencing the Beast in 2 different.
It is very possible that it could have been a coincidence. Both got noted by them, but if they didn't want that in there, those lines didn't have to be there. Especially both of them between this and the Cody promo where they refer to Brock. Like they easily could have omitted it if they didn't want it there. But I thought it was very noteworthy. We had 2 subtle references to Brock.
Yeah, beyond that, I thought it was a good interaction. Rollins at this point, he's only really the Messiah in what? Is he even what is he? The architect Messiah, whatever he is. He's not much of a gimmick anymore. He is like sometimes when he like starts his promos, does like, I'm the visionary, all that shit. But now he's really just a normal human being, and I really like what he's sort of like honed in on. He is now the franchise player of the brand. He's sort of like the role that when AJ Styles played when he was having his great run on SmackDown. He's talking himself up as the guy who's perceived as the locker room leader, the guy who's consistent as an in-ring performer, and I really like this little heroic display of him like essentially begging for a difficult match because he says he wants to stay sharp.
Cody Rhodes comes out, and we got mention of Sam Mushnick, the Kiel Auditorium, and Wrestling at the Chase on Raw in 2024, as he is a pro wrestling and sports entertainment historian. And everyone remembers the great sports entertainment promoter Sam Mushnick and the sports entertainment organization that was St. Louis.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what?
Cody Rhodes. It's Larry Matizek, and we've got Cody Rhodes, sports entertainment aficionado with Ted DiBiase.
Yes. Yeah. Cody, I think, is really great at he's the only guy really on the roster that I think you can expect to play that sort of historian role. And he uses it whenever he needs to make his appearance at a particular town feel special. Oh, I'm in St. Louis. Here's an interesting fact that only I might be able to tell you about St. Louis that nobody else on this roster will be able to.
Pat McAfee, when he comes back.
Do you think McAfee will be talking about Sam Mushnick and Wrestling at the Chase? Yeah.
We'll never know. He missed the St. Louis show.
But Cody really is, I think, one of the best baby faces they've ever had for this reason. He can make any town feel like it's a special town for him.
So he mentions that something happened in this building that changed his life. And dude, for the life of me, I did not know what he was referring to. And the crowd starts chanting, "We want Cody." And he explains that, yes, that is where this chant began. I guess this was in the lead up to Mania after the Rumble debacle.
I guess so, dude. Like
That's what I assumed.
I didn't think it was significant, but clearly this crowd knew. What
I
he was
guess
talking about.
they were on cue, so
Yeah.
they knew. I will state, and I can't say verbatim every segment. There was certainly a lot of crowd manipulation on this.
Did
tape
you
show.
think so?
I definitely felt so. There were times if you.
Because I would say if there was supposed to be, they could have used a lot more of it in some of these other matches later on.
Well, there were some where it just felt like this crowd was like sitting on its hands, and the audio did not match the visual.
So there's one portion in this segment that I feel like they used to make an edit point to close it, but I'm curious to know where else you thought it was.
Well, Cody explains people are going to call me a politician, but there's nothing political about this, as he thanks the fans. That's what Chad Gable's going to be stating soon. There's nothing political about this. Gunther interrupts. He's not too negative about Cody. He, as he usually is with others, says that the sport is in a boom period. It's built on Cody's back. He's the quarterback of this operation, and I don't respect many in this company, but I do respect you. But you try to be everyone's friend, and that's why you're having issues with Kevin Owens. And I want you to take care of this emotional mess before we have our match. Cody says that is not a weakness, it's his biggest strength. And he notices what happens when people push Gunther to the limit. He gets uncomfortable in matches, and he breaks. Cody respects Gunther, too. He's never truly been in the deep end because you've never faced me one-on-one. So Gunther calls him a secondary champion after just calling this guy the quarterback, and reminds Gunther, I beat the most dominant champion in company history, and I slayed a frightening beast. And they shake hands as Gunther says, good luck to me, the champ.
I thought it was an excellent money segment between these two. First of all, look at how outstanding they both look in their brown suits, and you can't see it in this photo, but brown loafers, okay? They're blue suits, I should say, and brown loafers. And
did this live up to the billing of a first ever face-to-face meeting, these two finally crossing paths after all this time?
Well, I guess if you're looking by the WWE definition of a face-to-face is two people speaking to each other face-to-face for the first time, then sure, yeah. As talkers, I thought they both gave you a lot of depth to their promos here. Both guys are usually seen as these sort of like infallible top dogs, but I thought they managed to like each pick out a pretty valid character flaw in the other. Gunther, first of all, keeping Cody's like sort of A storyline or B storyline, whatever you want to call it, on SmackDown alive by reminding you about the Cody stuff. And again, remember, the Kevin Owens stuff. And remember the out of sequence taping up this too. So yes, the Kevin Owens stuff was already a thing on Sunday, but anyway, I find that fascinating. But he's pointing out Cody's problem of wanting to be everybody's friend. He was that guy with Jay. Now he's that guy with Roman, and it's cost him his relationship with Kevin Owens. While Cody is pointing to Gunther's inability to withstand a bullied victim who can fight back, alluding to the Zayn win at Mania. Now, when you consider that he did beat Zayn again, he avenged that loss, that maybe that doesn't hold as much weight, but still, it's the one time Gunther faltered as part of this main roster run, and Cody kind of had to really rely on that to pick a character flaw. But
this crowd had also just seen this match like 30 minutes before this, probably.
True. But I would say, like, in terms of believable, well thought out, valid criticisms of the other's characters, I thought this was like really well done.
Yeah, I mean, it's I can't say this Crown Jewel show feels like a big show at like a typical PL. I think they're really just relying on these champion versus champion matches. But it doesn't kind of have that big marquee value. But maybe I'm underscoring the value of this Crown Jewel Championship.
I think they're trying their best to, like, I've been curious to see how they would be able to tell these stories without, with how much crossover you might see between the two champions. And at least in these first 2 weeks, you're seeing plenty of crossover between Raw and SmackDown for Gunther, Cody, and Nia and Liv. And I think that's to the benefit of the card.
After last week's show, Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods are in the locker room, and Kofi is explaining to Woods that if the shoe was on the other foot, Jay would have had their back, explaining why he came to the defense of Jay against the urging of Woods. But Woods reminds him, I'm supposed to be the quarterback, and that's not the way it's been going. And that's when Kofi could have leaned in and said, well, technically Cody's the quarterback around here, Woods. He's the real quarterback from the state of Georgia in this company. Big Dragon Lee vignette. It's like the biggest thing they've done with Dragon Lee on this entire run. He joined the LWO, but it hasn't all been easy. Every setback, he becomes stronger, which would mean this guy is probably like, his veins are popping out. He's wiser and better than before. His goal is for his heroes to look at him as their equal. Not even the sky is my limit. And Dragon Lee is destined to fly, which I can only hope that this is going to be some spectacular entrance in Saudi Arabia where he flies into the arena.
It certainly makes you wonder. I can at least maybe expect this to be a part of the Titantron, but probably the most money anybody's ever spent on promoting Dragon Lee was this video. Like, where did they get the VFX budget to have wings grow out of this guy?
Maybe they had a quiet week and someone just went into his editing bay and just went wild and came out of this, and now Dragon Lee is a flying character.
It must have been Joaquin Wilde, okay? Like the guy who created the ROH logo probably went in and edited all this for him. Yeah, it was scripted really well, this video. Yes, this was like a very video package heavy show, but I think but I really don't mind that, especially like when they're in service of like promoting guys like Dragon Lee who could really use this sort of stuff. And I also think it's a way to show like what Levesque's team is now really capable of. You compare these sort of video pieces and like what American Made, was able to showcase. Compare them to the quality and maybe like sort of staleness of the production styles of like the Dunn Vince era. It's been a huge evolution and variation.
Up next, we go to Bron Breakker against Kofi Kingston, which was our follow-up to last week's match involving Woods. So Kingston gets hit with an Irish whip, sending him into the buckle, and then Breakker takes over until he runs his shoulder into the post, and Kofi fights back with a boom drop, misses the Trouble in Paradise, but connects with the SOS. Bron then catches him off the top into a belly-to-belly and hits what is now called the Super Spear for the win. And Bron then teases a further attack when Woods runs in to stop him. Bron jumps Woods, sets him up for a spear when Jey Uso comes to save the New Day. And it's Jey super kicking Breakker. He hits a spear onto him. And then, this is like Michael Myers here, coming back to life on the apron, and Bron falls to one final super kick. So here, the shoe was on the other foot, and Jey came to help Woods.
He did, or was he really just here to help Kofi and to get at Breakker? We don't know. But I mean, either way, the suggestion is there, and the tension continues to be built really well between Woods and Kofi. I thought they found a great way of like building two different storylines using these four different characters here. So now we're getting the Jey versus Breakker rematch, and whatever Kofi and Woods are arguing over, they can continue to argue over that much more.
Ripley met with Damian Priest and says she'll be okay tonight. She doesn't need him to come out, and says it's time for you to go after what you were robbed of. You've destroyed all of the Judgment Day. You got your revenge on Balor. This group's dead. You can just move on for another chance at the title. And Priest agrees. And
they're kind of going their separate directions, at least for the time being, right? That's what maybe I took this to be, at least, in the grand scheme of things. So it looks like, what is it? Priest is going for, or he has title aspirations again. Can you see Priest versus Gunther one more time?
Of course. I could see him many more times. Why not?
Okay.
Jey Uso is backstage, and he goes into the locker room, and there is Jimmy. And Jey just walks away. He has no interest in speaking with his brother. And we would revisit this later. How did Jimmy get backstage here?
I'm sure
Does
he knows
someone?
people. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
R-Truth against The Miz, the big blow-off. Truth does not take this as a real heel turn and offers his hand. Miz reluctantly agrees. And then we got a Wyatt 6 interruption here. The final testament walked down.
So this one, because we do have a bit of time, I did see some people able to decipher that the coordinates are for, where are they next week? Do you know, John?
Philadelphia?
Yeah, I think the coordinates are for Philly. So maybe expect them to make an appearance.
Okay, countdown begins.
Or expect a new video for Philly.
Yeah, and then they'll give you the coordinates for next month.
Yeah.
So the final testament walked down. This distracts The Miz, who gets rolled up with a schoolboy, so Truth wins in no time. AOP jump R-Truth and send him into the ring for a skull-crushing finale. Great. Mm-hmm. So this one can continue. Maybe this will continue to Saudi Arabia.
I think the idea is that Miz in a video after on .com was like really upset at the fact that he shook R-Truth's hand, and like for a time was good again, and so therefore this is showing him that, I guess, Karrion Kross is right, that, you know, being good doesn't pay off.
Okay, so yeah, gripping. Jimmy Uso is in the back.
Expect something with the Wyatts, because it's 2 weeks now in a row that we've had some Wyatt interaction.
Sure, and maybe this is like maybe the best involvement for the Wyatts with the Final Testament, the Miz, R-Truth. Perfect.
Yeah, we'll see.
Put this all into the same story. Jimmy Uso is searching for Jay, finds him, and Jay tells him to get out of his face and rejects his offer to speak. So this is the start of the tease, and this is should go on for multiple weeks.
Yeah. Because we have 2 months, War Games.
Yeah, 6 weeks.
6 weeks. Yeah, cool.
Next week on Raw in Philadelphia, it's Jey Uso and Braun Breaker for the IC title and the continuation of the tag tournament. By the way, the War Raiders against Tozawa and Otis was part of our tag tournament.
It was?
I think so, yes.
Oh, okay.
That was mentioned. So we'll get New Day against AOP and Ray and Dragon Lee against the Creeds in this number one contenders tournament. More so just an update on how many are considered teams here.
Yeah.
And then Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez against Rhea Ripley and Tiffany Stratton. And if you thought that Seth freaking Rollins got grading, welcome to Rhea Bloody Ripley, that they now seem to have to say every single time, Rhea Bloody Ripley. So Rhea is about to square off with Raquel when Tiffany tags herself in. So we have Tiffany and Rhea trying to get along but can't. They argue on the floor as Raquel powerbombs Liv onto both of them on the floor.
This might have been a spot they did when they were baby faces, I seem to think.
Oh, that's right, where she would like throw her over the top. Yeah, that's quite the offensive move to pull off. Especially if they just sidestepped her and she just got powerbombed on the floor.
You kind of saw that with Jade and Bianca.
Yeah.
Right?
They get the heat on Stratton when they return from break, and Raquel is working on her back. Ripley comes in, drop kicks Raquel off the apron, and hits a knee strike to Liv, and a riptide connects when Raquel makes the save and pulls Liv away. Then she tags Stratton so that Rhea can go after Raquel on the floor, teases a riptide on the floor when Nia Jax runs down, attacking Ripley for revenge for a future attack in real time for this crowd in St. Louis, causing the DQ. And then they attack Rhea's knee with a chop block. So they're still playing up this knee injury, even though she never sells it. And she tries to lift Jax. Jax attacks Liv and hits a Samoan drop and a leg drop and then an annihilator onto Liv, telling Tiffany to cash in when Dominic appears, pulling Liv to safety and avoiding any cash in. And that ends the show.
Yeah. So there was this moment where, like, I think they were heating up Rhea for the hot tag, and like Stratton actually goes to the corner and like makes contact with Rhea, but Rhea like purposely doesn't reach for it. And the announcers are kind of like chalking that up to like storyline, but like it wouldn't make sense for like a babyface to just not take the hot tag.
Oh yeah, so I noted that. Yeah.
I thought that was definitely a screw up, and it stood out to me because this was a taped show, so I don't know why they wouldn't have cut that out or edited it. I mean, if it was meant to be the way it was, then I don't think it necessarily made Rhea look good to just...
We're going to get a 3-minute video package next week explaining this.
Yeah, so that kind of took me out of it. I would say the finish was obviously very unsatisfying as well. The match didn't get to a good enough level for me to, forgive the botch in any way. So I wasn't really a big fan of it. Cash in tease, like, fine. Yeah, it was okay. Yeah. It just kind of continues to build to Rhea versus Nia, but I wasn't that impressed with the main event overall.
My rule of thumb ends at 10 p.m. It's 10 out of 10.
Great show.
Perfect show. One of the best Raws of all time. All right. Well, there you go. It was very much a taped edition of the show, but I mean, they always plant like a lot of like video packages, backstage stuff that there was like storyline advancements and such, but this did feel like a tape show, I think, without even going into it with that knowledge.
Last week felt like a show that I think you saw some people complain was too short in some ways. This was not.
This was sufficient. This was sufficient for 2 hours.
It felt like a 2-hour show. In fact, it felt like an hour and a half show dragged out to 2 hours. That's not to say I didn't enjoy it, because I think the creative directions continue to be like pretty compelling to me. I think Raw just does a great job of building up your next tier of guys. There's constant movement and elevation, and whether we're talking about this like upcoming Jay versus Jimmy thing, or like the New Day, what's going on with them, or like video packages for guys like Dragon Lee, I there's always something for me to like be interested in on the show. So still enjoyed it, but a step down from the usual.
All right, we have a few pieces of feedback that we will get to, and if you have super chats, we will welcome those too.
We got a super chat here. Thank you very much, Brian Dillon, who sends 20 euros to ask, I'm sorry if this was for talk. How long do you both leave a baby when they're crying? My boy wakes at 3 a.m. and cries for no reason, then passes out, but I feel bad. Am I a terrible parent?
No, you're not a terrible parent.
You're describing sleep training, which is at least I think what some people might call that. It's something we've done for our child, and it's really paid off because he can connect his naps and he doesn't rely on us to come in. I think for a time you'll feel awful about it, but hopefully they get through a hump, and then they'll probably be thankful for it, because it means that they get better rest overall. I know it's somewhat controversial though, this practice, and it's not for everybody, it's not for every kid, but maybe you shouldn't feel bad if that's what you've chosen to try, at least.
Are you still in the midst of like crying in the middle of the night, or has Oscar passed that?
He slept great. That? Like we're almost afraid now that he'll regress at some point, because he's like becoming a toddler. But thankfully nothing yet. He's really now into he loves like toy cars, and so he'll always want to clutch onto a toy car when he's sleeping. But these things end up falling through the cracks, and sometimes he'll wake up because he'll be like, "We're like car." Like he'll be concerned that like he can't grab his car, and then that would keep him up until he finds it. Sometimes he can. So,
no, thank you, Brian. This is the insight you look for on Rewind to Raw.
Yeah.
All right, on to a few pieces of feedback here. We will start things off with. Actually, why don't you start us off, Way?
Let's start with Muggin, who says, a better paced episode than last week. Rotating programs in and out seems to be the better solution after losing an hour. The women's roster booking in the episode felt like a make good for the short tag match last week. Jay's independence looks to be in jeopardy with Jimmy trying to mend fences, and unsurprisingly, he wants nothing to do with the bloodline. No one said this family reunion was going to be easy. Neither is reopening old wounds. Pride is the one thing Roman Reigns has yet to swallow. Does my raspy movie trailer voice help with some of that?
No one said this family reunion was going to be easy.
Yeah.
This fall, in theaters everywhere.
Yeah.
Reopening
Pride
old
is
wounds.
the one thing that Roman Reigns has yet to swallow.
Next up, we have Brandon from New Jersey, who writes, "Are we live, pal? Ha 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 ha. Ha. It's me, Brand. How are you? Can you hear me? Okay, let's try this again. Man, been a minute since we spoke. Hope all is well. Hope you feel better, Way. Hope the family is well. And get some soup in you. Some electrolytes feel good. Hope you're well as well, John. Anywho, they say what is delayed is delayed. A wise man once said." Okay, I prefer Brandon's phone calls. Yeah, he wishes us a happy Thanksgiving. Same to you, Brandon, as you celebrate Canadian Thanksgiving.
Let's go to Cameron, who says, average episode, but that's normal for a taped episode. The 2-hour format is a blessing. Who do you see as the next long-term Raw women's feud after Liv versus Rhea? It's a shame they couldn't follow through on the Lyra push. They mentioned Brock twice tonight, a sign of things to come. Thank you all for the reviews. All right. Well, thank you very much for that, Cameron. Who do you see as the next long-term Raw women's feud?
I mean, outside of these two, I think we will at some point get to Rhea and Raquel. That seems like one. They're not going to that immediately. That's your division, Way. I mean, you gotta create some people at this point. Like Bianca and Io Sky are off in their tag programs. They would be natural people to have part of these divisions. And maybe once you get to Rumble Mania season, you're gonna see those two maybe utilized more outside of just their tag teams. Mm.
I wonder if Nia versus Rhea is a tease for because to cross brands, one would either have to wait for Crown Jewel or one would have to win the Royal Rumble, right? So I wonder if they might be setting that up as Rhea's Mania program, because beyond this, there's just not a lot of juice, I would say. But there are a lot of one-off opponents that I think they could build to. Io is somebody who I think continues to be bubbling on the surface with like a good amount of momentum that I think they've yet to completely capitalize on. So like, man, an Io versus Rhea program, even as double baby faces, I think would be really interesting too.
Okay, and Annie writes, while not a particularly newsworthy episode of Raw, I thought there were some nice character developments in a show that was still creatively focused through the use of a lot of pre-tapes. Good to see the War Raiders back after having shed their previous personas. The Cody Gunther promo was quite strong, and I dearly miss Cody on Raw. I wish they would trade the Judgment Day to SmackDown for Cody, Kevin Owens, and Andrade so that I don't have to watch either the Judgment Day or the Bloodline. Where are you guys on the... Can you imagine how much time would be taken up if you had the Judgment Day and Bloodline on 1 2-hour show every week?
It wouldn't be possible, no.
Where are you guys on the Jack Stratton stuff? Are you into the resurgence of the women's division on SmackDown with Naomi, Green, Niven, and Michin seemingly having found new roles? It's two HBK era NXT pilled cartoonish from... Sorry. Two HBK era NXT pilled cartoonish from my taste. That's a new one.
HBK era NXT pilled. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so it's too cartoonish. I mean, you mentioned a bunch of names there, and there's, I think, varying degrees of like interest. Like, I think he's specifically referring to like Chelsea Green and like Michin's like garbage fight, that sort of shit. And
Chelsea Green is always going to be cartoonish. Like, that is the character, and she does it very well. But that's the purpose of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say overall, I think it's been pretty weak. The SmackDown women's side of things. Jackson and Stratton, I've not been compelled by at all. I think Stratton is missing a certain connection to the audience as a babyface for what they're trying to push as this sort of like sympathetic bullied role that she's supposed to be under Nia. So they have a lot of work to do with her before I think like she gets there. I think Naomi continues to be a bright spot, but I also think she's very underutilized. I think Bayley's like showing like she's good, like her promos are good, her in-ring's good, but I don't think she's got the right stories yet attached to her. So I would say it's a bit of a weak point. We do have one bit of news, John, and this is a really unfortunate one here before we sign off. So according to the MLW account, MLW is deeply saddened to learn about the passing of former Ring of Honor COO Joe Koff. On behalf of MLW, we extend our heartfelt condolences to his family and loved ones. Joe always led with honor, integrity, and a passion for the sport we all cherish. His legacy will live on in the hearts of everyone he inspired. Thank you, Joe, for your contributions and unwavering dedication to wrestling. Rest in peace.
Joe Koff was, he was the, key figure for Ring of Honor after the Sinclair purchase. I mean, he was somebody that, years prior had been involved in the promotion of the inaugural like Battle of the Belts when it was affiliated with the NWA. Like he was a wrestling fan coming into the Sinclair purchase, which went down in May of 2011. And I can just speak that Joe Koff was always someone that was, when I reached out, would always get back to me, was always, on top of, just in terms of, if I had a question, if I had a request for something, like he was always very good and on part of that and kind of steered ROH through, certainly a lot of, there was the down period, but then he was kind of the overseer, when they really hit their peak, when they had Cody Rhodes and the Young Bucks attached, and suddenly like you saw that increase in business in 2017, 2018, and what will go down as his crowning achievement in that run of ROH was running Madison Square Garden with New Japan in April of 2019. And
let's not forget All In.
And All In, like that's a part that people don't really associate with the fact that like that was an ROH supported event and they could have very easily turned down the request of Rhodes and the Bucks to participate in that event, but they helped run that show and they own the rights to that show coming out of it as well. But and then he steered things like he was hardly just a corporate suit that was assigned pro wrestling. Like he was a fan of the product and was fought very hard for Ring of Honor as well. Very sad news to hear about the passing of Joe Koff. I'm sure we will have more on the site as well. Brandon Thurston will also have a story up on our site later today about the filing today by Janel Grant's team, and we have received a response from the counsel for Dr. Carlon Colker and Peak Wellness, and this will be included in the story. But the comment, this is from Frank Silvestri, who is representing Dr. Colker and Peak Wellness. As counsel for Dr. Colker and Peak Wellness, we can confirm that Ms. Grant and her counsel have long since received Ms. Grant's electronic medical records in accordance with the law. Any statement by Ms. Grant and her counsel that indicates otherwise is simply untrue. So Grant's side has stated they have received incomplete and inaccurate written records, and it seems like the source of contention is what has been delivered, and is it the complete records? They're stating that they have received the electronic medical records in accordance with the law. Okay. So that seems to be the issue between the sides. But that will be included in the story that Brandon Thurston will have up shortly as well.
One last super chat here in the last minute comes to us from Jake from the Windy City. Thank you, Jake, for the support. I'm happy that Cody is breaking away from the Roman bloodline story for the time being, as I was concerned he was going to play second fiddle to them.
All right. Thanks, Jake, for the super chat. We appreciate it. All right. Tonight, Braden and Davey are live after NXT, and then I'm back with Brandon Thurston Wednesday at 1 Eastern, and then Rewind to Dynamite on Wednesday night. New Rewind Away drops Thursday, looking back at Saturday night's main event from October of 1987. You can leave feedback on the forum and support us at postwrestlingcafe.com. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. A special Tuesday edition of the show. We'll be back to normal next Monday night, and that concludes Rewind to Raw.